I haven't stopped thinking about you since we met last night. I mean, I had such a good time, I just wanted to keep the conversation going.
What elements of Hekla did you immediately recognize and knew you could interpret? And which did you know you would have to really work on to create her?
I feel like it's kind of for me the same answer probably, which is weird. I feel like her outgoingness is something that I really felt like I could connect with, but also something I was scared of um, to give to her. I guess it still made me nervous at the same time, but I feel like that's something that people notice about me immediately is that I'm outgoing. But then it kind of intermingles with my own anxiety as well. So when I had to do it, I would get like a little anxious about it. So I'd say probably her unapologetic nature altogether for both answers.
Okay, Michael Glover Smith told me he wrote the role of Hekla specifically with you in mind, but still made you audition for the part.
He
Did
did.
you
He did.
did you know he wrote it for you going into the audition, and did it change the way you approached doing the audition?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was sent me a different script at first. I think it's something that he's actually coming back to now. But he was like sending me this other script called The Vanishing Room, and then he started sending me Relative, and was like, I think I'm gonna write this girlfriend role for you. Which at the same time, it made me excited, but very nervous at the same time to see how someone else portrays me as a human being on paper. Um, so that was definitely intimidating, but I guess I don't think it really changed the way on how I auditioned, which was nice. I was a flight attendant at the time, so I just kind of did it from the hotel room I was staying in that night and sent it in. And he said he loved it, so it worked from there. It was a really great opportunity.
Perfect. So you had to play a character connecting for the first time with a potential uh, love relationship, possibly. Uh, how was the history of your plunge into the relationship pool helpful for this part of the story?
Good question. It was actually super helpful because I had just started seeing my boyfriend around that time. So I kind of had a refresh of what that feeling is like when you first kind of think, oh shit, I really like this person. So it was that was super helpful for me to be able to have that memory so close to me to pull it into Hekla meeting Benji for the first time and kind of like the first time he hits on her where she's kind of taken aback and like, what do you want? Like, what's going on here? And then kind of when they start talking and realizing that you're enjoying yourself in the conversation, being pulled in by them. And that had just happened to me. So it worked really well on my
Well,
timeline.
so your character is an actor and you are an actor. Are you and Hekla different styles of actors, or are you confident that you share the same actor traits?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I think Hecla is probably a bit more uh, pretentious in her acting, maybe a style a little bit than I am. I think she's much more forward about it and uh, confident, I guess I could say. She's very, I mean, she was asked to do a monologue in hell. She did a memorized monologue that moment. Like, if someone asked me at a dinner party to do a monologue, I feel like it'd be like, ooh, so I think that is probably where we differ slightly in our acting. I
Well,
respect her for it. Hell, she did great.
it's interesting that you're playing an actor, so you have to understand what she's like as an actor versus what you're like.
Right,
So,
right. And in that role, it's like I was playing an actor who was also playing Gwendolyn, so it was
right.
very stacked.
And that's my next question. Had you had any familiarity with the importance of being earnest before you did the scene from it? And then what was key to creating Gwendolyn in the moment and within the context of the story and the party?
um, so when I found out that that was the gonna be the monologue, I was super anxious because I didn't know that story very well at all. luckily enough, my brother-in-law, I think he had been in the show or something along those lines, but he knew exactly, and I was visiting them. They live in California. He knew exactly the kind of personality she was giving in that moment, and he kind of coached me before my audition even, into the language of it, her actions, how she's feeling at that time, and then he showed me all of these YouTube clips. So I was super lucky that he was so familiar with that role, honestly.
What is the best advice you've ever received about acting, and how do you honor that advice in your performances?
When someone says how important reacting is, when the camera is not necessarily on you, just making sure that you're reacting to what the person says. I feel like it's so often where you're watching, especially in film. I feel like it's so often you're watching and you can tell the other person is just thinking about their next line that they're supposed to be saying, and they're not actually listening to the person who's talking. So I feel like definitely being on throughout every moment, even if that camera isn't on you.
So this is your second film, and I assume you want to do more. What type of roles do you want to be considered for, even if they are outside of what casting folks would consider your type?
Well, actually, so this is something I struggle with because I've always wanted to do a comedic role like this. But I feel like a lot of people, especially for women, write like kind of a victim role, or kind of, they love to write drama stories. And I love drama stories, respect the hell out of them. And they kind of make the woman like kind of this girly that needs help in a way. So this might start getting me, I'm hoping that this kind of starts getting me more opportunities to keep going with the comedy roles, because I mean, that's what I've always wanted. And it was such a dream to be able to really play one pretty much for the first time, besides sketches and improv items. So that was a really great opportunity.
So what was your reaction when you first saw the film and saw yourself on screen? Were you self-critical, or did you feel like you had done the job that the role called for?
There's always going to be self-criticism, of course. Mm-hmm. But I think I was super hard on myself more during the filming. So I was trying to kind of watch the film with grace, of course, because you're going to see yourself. The only way you see yourself is the way that you see yourself. You're paying more attention to you than anybody else is, all the time, always. So I feel like I tried my best to give myself as much grace as I could. And I really enjoyed watching it, honestly. I know people say they don't like watching themselves, but if you just take a step back and really listen to the story of it, I feel like it makes it easier on you.
If you and Hekla were to have lunch together, what would you like to tell her about yourself that you would think would give her insight to the type of person you are?
Oh, I would tell her about my family. I feel like that's the beauty of this film, to get insight on someone. Learning their background is a super important part of knowing who anyone is. And that's what I'd ask her too. I want to talk to her about her background, her family, and I want to talk about mine to her. I think we'd have a very beautiful conversation that way and get to know each other.
This is Patrick McDonald for HollywoodChicago.com. Copyright 2022.